Right now, somewhere in your day, a tactic rooted in dark psychology has probably already been used on you, and you likely had no idea it was happening. Not in some shadowy alley, not by a criminal mastermind, but in a sales call, a social media feed, a casual conversation with a coworker, or even a passing comment from someone who claims to love you. Dark psychology is not reserved for con artists and villains in movies. It is woven quietly into ordinary life, used by ordinary people, often without them even realizing they are doing it. Understanding these tactics will not just protect you, it might change the way you see almost every interaction you have for the rest of your life. The first tactic, and one of the most ancient forms of social influence, is reciprocity exploitation. Human beings carry a deep, almost involuntary urge to return favors, a trait that evolutionary psychologists believe developed because reciprocal generosity helped early human groups survive. The problem is that this instinct does not check whether a favor was genuinely generous or strategically calculated. Salespeople have understood this for decades, offering a free sample, a small gift, or a seemingly generous discount before ever asking for something in return. Once that small gift is accepted, an invisible psychological debt is created, and most people feel a quiet, nagging pressure to repay it, often by saying yes to something they would have otherwise easily declined. This is why so many free trials end with subscriptions nobody truly intended to keep. The second tactic operates through a force most people don't realize is actively working against their own judgment: social proof manipulation. Humans are wired to look at the behavior of others as a shortcut for determining what is correct or safe, a mental shortcut that worked well when our ancestors needed to quickly judge danger within small tribes. Today, this same instinct is exploited constantly. Fake reviews, manufactured crowds, and curated displays of popularity create an illusion of consensus that did not exist organically. When you see hundreds of five-star reviews or a long line outside a restaurant, your brain assumes quality must be present, even though that perception can be entirely engineered. The unsettling truth is that you are far more influenced by what other people appear to be doing than by what is objectively true. The third tactic hides inside one of the most universally human emotions: fear of missing out. Scarcity manipulation works by artificially creating urgency, a ticking countdown timer, a warning that only 3 items remain, a message claiming an offer expires at midnight. Neuroscience research shows that perceived scarcity activates loss aversion circuits in the brain, areas more strongly triggered by the fear of losing something than by the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. This single psychological quirk explains why people make impulsive decisions under artificial pressure, decisions they would never make if given time to think clearly, calmly, and without a manufactured deadline pressing against their judgment. The fourth tactic is something psychologists refer to as anchoring, a subtle manipulation of perceived value through the strategic placement of numbers. If you were shown an extremely expensive item first, followed by a slightly less expensive one, the second item suddenly feels reasonable, even if it remains objectively costly. Your brain does not evaluate price in isolation, it evaluates price in comparison to whatever number it encountered most recently, a vulnerability so well documented that it is deliberately built into pricing strategies across nearly every major industry, from retail stores to real estate negotiations. The fifth tactic preys on something deeply personal: identity-based persuasion. Manipulators and advertisers alike often frame choices not as simple decisions, but as reflections of who you are as a person. Phrases like "smart people choose this option," or "if you really cared, you would agree," do not just present information, they threaten your self-image, forcing you to either comply or risk an uncomfortable internal contradiction.
Psychologists call this identity dissonance, and it is remarkably effective precisely because most people would rather change their decision than confront an uncomfortable question about their own character. The sixth tactic involves a slower, more patient form of control, known as foot-in-the-door technique. This tactic begins with a small, easily agreeable request, something so minor it seems harmless to accept. Once that small request is granted, subsequent requests gradually increase in size, each one feeling like a natural continuation of the last. Researchers studying compliance behavior have found that people who agree to a small initial request are significantly more likely to agree to a much larger request later, even when that larger request would have been refused outright if asked first. This is precisely why so many manipulative relationships and manipulative sales pitches alike often begin with something disarmingly small. The seventh tactic, often used by people skilled in emotional manipulation, is selective validation, sometimes referred to as intermittent praise. This tactic involves offering genuine-seeming approval just often enough to keep someone emotionally invested, while withholding consistent affirmation the rest of the time. This unpredictable pattern, much like inconsistent rewards studied in classic behavioral experiments, creates a far stronger psychological pull than steady, predictable approval ever could. The target spends increasing amounts of energy chasing validation that arrives just rarely enough to feel valuable, unaware that the inconsistency itself is the very mechanism keeping them hooked. The eighth tactic is something behavioral economists call the framing effect, a technique built around the simple but powerful truth that identical information can produce dramatically different reactions depending on how it is worded. Describing a medical procedure as having a 90% survival rate creates a vastly different emotional reaction than describing the same procedure as having a 10% mortality, even though both statements convey exactly the same statistical reality. Skilled manipulators understand that controlling the framing of information is often more powerful than controlling the information itself, because human decision-making relies far more heavily on emotional impression than on cold, objective analysis. The ninth tactic operates through silence rather than speech, strategic ambiguity. Many manipulators deliberately avoid giving clear answers, allowing the other person to fill in the gaps with their own hopeful or fearful assumptions. A vague compliment, an unclear promise, a non-committal response to an important question. These create space for the listener's imagination to construct whatever interpretation keeps them emotionally engaged, often one far more favorable than reality actually supports. This tactic is particularly common in manipulative romantic dynamics, where ambiguity keeps a partner hopeful and invested, even in the complete absence of clear commitment or honesty. The 10th and final tactic might be the most quietly dangerous of all, precisely because it disguises itself as kindness, love bombing followed by withdrawal, sometimes called the push-pull dynamic. This tactic involves overwhelming someone with affection and attention early in a relationship, only to suddenly and unpredictably withdraw that warmth without clear explanation. The resulting emotional whiplash creates intense anxiety and a desperate craving to return to that initial period of closeness. Psychologists studying attachment behavior note that this oscillation between closeness and distance can create patterns disturbingly similar to addiction, where the brain becomes fixated not on consistent happiness, but on the unpredictable possibility of recapturing an earlier high. When you examine all 10 of these tactics together, an uncomfortable pattern emerges, one that should make anyone pause and reconsider how much of daily life is built on the careful exploitation of fundamental human psychology. None of these tactics rely on obvious lies or dramatic deception. Instead, they exploit instincts that evolved over thousands of years to help humans survive, cooperate, and bond within communities. Instincts that worked beautifully in small tribal societies, but leave us strangely vulnerable in a world filled with strangers who understand exactly how to trigger them. This raises a final, deeply unsettling question worth sitting with long after this video ends. If so much of human behavior can be predicted, triggered, and subtly redirected through psychological patterns most people have never consciously studied, how much of what you believe to be your own free choice is actually a carefully engineered response to invisible psychological pressure? Perhaps true freedom does not come from avoiding